starting the live, and great. I'll refresh my YouTube page. Okay, I guess there's a latency of 5 seconds here. There's a comment here in YouTube Live saying, I believe there's an issue on the website.
I think we're live now.
Yeah, I'll double check the meetup page.
So I guess while waiting, Majid, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Very well. Hello.
Thank
you
for.
How about you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for accepting our invitation for this webinar.
It's a pleasure.
I think a lot of developers is excited to hear about your topic for today. So
I'm also so excited actually to share this to all of you. So very excited to be part of the Philippine community, Flutter community. Very excited. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, welcome. Yeah. So Joshua, are we all good? Or?
Yeah, we could start if you want to.
Alrighty, let's start now then. So, cool. Hello everyone and welcome to our third Flutter at Home webinar. This is Joni. I'll be your host for this webinar. Our speaker for today is Majid Hajian. He's an engineering manager for Software AS, and he'll be talking about DevOps in Flutter. The topic title is Applying DevOps in Flutter Mobile Development. Exciting stuff. So anyways, hello Majid. Thank you again for accepting our invitation. Now, before we begin, I would like to take a moment to talk about Flutter Philippines. So Flutter Philippines is a collaborative community for anyone interested in developing apps using Flutter and Dart. So we have already over 1,000 members on meetups and Facebook. And if you are not yet a member, please visit flutter.ph for more details. Now, Flutter at Home is an online event by Flutter Philippines, and we are currently in the learning phase. The learning phase is all about learning how to use Flutter and Dart to help you build apps for mobile, desktop, and web. Later on, we will have, of course, two challenges, prototype and hackathon. The prototype challenge is where you take a UI design and then translate it into a Flutter screen. Of course, the hackathon challenge will be about building a Flutter app from scratch. I think there will be a team for that one. Both challenges are moved to another date, so please make sure to join our FB group for updates. Anyways, there's still time to register, so if you haven't done that yet, please go to athome.flutter.ph. Okay, the webinar will be recorded and published on YouTube. Now, for later on, we will have a QA portion. For the QA portion, you may post your questions at flutterph.ask. And if you have a mobile, you can scan the QR code there. You can type your questions in your mobile and then while watching. You may also vote for your favorite questions. We'll then select, towards the end of the seminar, we will select questions for our guest speaker to answer. Anyways, thank you for listening and enjoy the webinar. We will turn you over to Majid for his presentation. All right, Majid, you're up.
All right, so I guess I can continue, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. So then let me start. First of all, again, hello everyone. Thanks for watching me and listening to me. And thanks for Flutter Philippines to invite me to speak about Flutter and DevOps a little bit and share my experience with the latest project and Flutter that I've done. So I'm very excited for today's talk, and in particular, I'm very excited to be part of this awesome community. Very glad. I used to live in that part of Asia. I know that people from Philippines and like Vietnam, Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, very welcoming and very warm. My favorite countries, actually. So let me start. Today, I'm going to talk about DevOps principles in Flutter, or in particular mobile development. But all of the examples and all of the things that here in these slides and my talk are just related to Flutter. So feel free to copy and paste and use them later. So perhaps we all know Flutter. So I'm not going to go through what is Flutter and why we need to choose that. So, but the thing is that we know that Flutter has 4 probably main goals. So we are going to build beautiful, fast, and also it's open source. And most importantly, it makes us so productive, right? And we all probably have seen all of these unique features of Flutter. And that's why we are Flutter developer and you are listening to me right now. But when it comes to development of an app, especially with Flutter, for instance, so you get a lot of tasks, right? You create your roadmaps, what is going to be done, and the development team, maybe product owner, and all of those things that usually a company has. And when especially you are creating a software and a mobile app. So it would be nice if we can actually focus on just development and we automate a lot of things, especially when it comes to integration, testing, monitoring, and more importantly, delivery and deployment to our end user and our customers. And our end user could be our beta testers, could be our stakeholder, or maybe deployment to production. So very nice if you just push a commit and then everything starts working, you know, so it's very nice, especially if you can have a full control over it. So that's what I'm gonna go through it today. So these are the things that I experienced, and I think this is very important, and maybe it works very well, at least for me. So I hope it also works for you. I hope that I can inspire you, and you will be inspired by this talk. So we go through branching and branching flows, deployment flows, and we will talk about CDCIs and job automations today, and see how we can get a full control over it and make everything automated in that sense. So let me introduce myself once more. My name is Majid Hajian, and I am a passionate software engineer, just like all of you that are watching me right now. And I am also a community leader and international speaker. And in my spare time, I'm also doing a lot of community organizing stuff. Like I am organizing a few meetups and a couple of conferences, especially in Nordic countries. I've also written a book, and I am a PacktPub and I'm PacktPub and also Udemy author. So you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or GitHub, or anywhere else with this handler on the screen. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. So no worries. So let's get it started. From code to user, let's have a look at that. So eventually, when you are working, you have a different part of the companies or different groups or teams that they require you to send the app or your software to them to use, right? You may have company tester. Depends on how big is your company, you know. So you may have a company tester, you may have internal testers, you may have some external testers, or those you want to call them beta testers, or at the end, you also have a production-ready app that most of your users are using that app, right? So it would be very nice if we can kind of relate those groups to our Git branching system. That's the first thing probably we can do. It might be some controversial things in that slides. I'm not saying that this is the only things that you can do, but this is what we've done, and it works very well. So I'm going to share it with you. So Git Flow, and if you're using especially agile methodology like Scrum, for instance, it works very well. Git Flow is a way to manage your branching in your project, Git project. So how it works is that you're going to have feature branches. Technically, those branches that each developer start developing, and you may even want to release those branches to some part of company. You have a develop branch, and you have also a master branch. So master branch is your single source of branch that always you can rely on and deploy to production for all of your users. And the development branch is the branch that you usually branch out from that and start developing your features. There are two more branches in that sense too, in this Git Flow. You have releases branches, and you have hotfixes. And what are the differences? So the hotfixes are usually branching out from master, and you fix something that is happening in production. Once you fix that, once you merge the hotfix branches, then it merges immediately to both master and development. Once you have release branch, once you have branching out release or creating a release branch, you are branching out from develop. So you get the latest update from develop, and you can also tag that or name it based on a tag name, right? Or version, for instance, 1, 2, whatever. And that release branch can stay and until you are confident and you can merge it back. Once you merge that branch, it is automatically merged with both develop and master. So in the release branch, if you find any problem, you can fix it and push it to that branch for sure. So that is the purpose of having this release branch. So releasing to the testers. Let's have a look at actually the relation between our groups and the branches. So what you can do here, you have company testers and you have internal testers, for instance, let's say, and then you want to actually release to those testers for testing some features or latest features that you developed, and you merge with develop branch, right? So this is exactly what you can do. As soon as some feature branches is merged with develop, you can release to those testers. You can ask them to start testing and send you feedbacks. Of course, you can fix bugs and merge back to develop. Once you open a release branch, let's say you are planning to release a feature version 1.2. Whatever, and then you want to release that to production, then you feel confident that if you are creating a branch with this tag and then release that branch to the external tester, for instance, some like wider users that they can test some beta testing. If any bugs happen, of course, you can fix in that version and then fix to that release branch, right? Once you merge, it goes to master, and then your master immediately can be deployed with confidence to end user. That is very good. So, but when it comes to the pipeline, when you are creating, also referring to the branch names are pretty simple, right? You can refer to master and set up your pipeline to production, or refer to develop and set up your deployment lane or pipeline to some kind of lane or internal or beta or whatever you want to do it. So technically, pretty easy to organize your pipelines based on these branches. Okay, first step, very good. But then when it comes to deployment, well, very good. So we have Android and iOS. We are developing with Flutter, right? So we will get both of that out of the box. So in Android, Google Play, we will have production, beta, alpha, and internal channels somehow ready for us. And in iOS, we have Test Flight and App Store. I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with these channels and softwares. Then, well, if we want to kind of relate those groups to these channels, would be very easy. Like, for instance, on Android, you simply production is your end user. So App Store or production, Google Play are master branch. So you can immediately release to those branches or those channels. Or beta testers, your release branches could go to beta, or it could go to test flight, a part of your beta testers. Or you can even release with feature flag to App Store with some of your beta testers. And also internal and alpha user, you definitely can relate those branches and internal testers together. But, well, while things are pretty even kind of nicer in Android, on iOS, maybe you want to do a little bit differently. Or it would be even nicer if you don't go through all of these approval and getting approval. You know, it would be very nice if you have a versioning and then immediately release or delete some kind of release version, isn't it? So where it comes app distribution, Firebase app distribution handy. Very, very nice tool. So if you haven't used that, strongly recommend that. So you definitely define your app bundle name, your app names here, both Android and iOS. And once it's connected, you can create your pipeline of deployment for different groups. As you see in the picture, I have created Android, for instance, internal tester, and iOS internal tester. You can even add more and more groups and relate them to those. All right, very good. So another option could be Visual Studio App Center. It's actually it's not just for distributing. It's a lot of things you can do with App Center. You can build or test, have analytics. But one part of it, which I'm very interested of, is the distributing stuff. So you can also use App Center to distribute different lanes of your pipeline to different user and groups. If you haven't used that, you can get a beta version and start using that and see which software or app you like when it comes to your app development and deployment. But all right, so now it's all about branching and relating the two groups and etc. So now it's time to set up a CDCI and automate our task, right? It's pretty nice if you can automate everything that I just talked and then do everything automatically when you push to different branch or when you create different branches. All right, then let's have a look at the normal or maybe a common way of developing a software, right? When it comes to the workflow, you as a developer, you probably branch out as a feature. You start writing your unit test, you push, and it goes to CDCI, and you maybe set up that, and then if it fails, you cannot merge it with develop or master. These are the things that we usually do when we develop an application, right? And it's fine. You can use any CDCI for your application. The goal here is to ensure the quality of app which is going to the end user, to the production, is very high. The quality is very high, and with a lot less bugs, as well as satisfying kind of business. And at the same time, us as a developer, you don't need to deal with a lot of things. So you just create those CDCI or those work flows, and then everything will work. So we have a lot of options when it comes to choosing a software for CDCI. So we have definitely all of this software you are familiar with. If you're using a GitLab, or if you're using Jenkins or Travis or whatever else, CodeMagic, for instance, which is very popular in a Flutter community, it's fine. You can use any of them. So, but I personally really like to create something that can be even run locally. I know that some of these tools also gives you an ability to run your CDCI pipeline locally. But I really like to be kind of decouple my automation scripts from these services. So for instance, if today I'm using Travis and tomorrow I want to use something else, it would be very nice to just copy and paste those scripts and then simply set up my pipeline in another CI system, right? So here is where I really like Fastlane. So Fastlane, if you don't know what it is, if you haven't heard of it, or if you have heard but haven't used it, so you get a sense right now how you can automate all of those things that we said with Fastlane. Fastlane is an open source project, of course, and the goal for the Fastlane is to simplifying Android and iOS deployment. So it's not actually particularly dedicated to Flutter or React Native, or maybe Android or iOS. You can use it for mobile development in general. So, and the beauty of the Fastlane is that it has a lot of features that can automate every aspect of your development when it comes to the mobile development application. If you need to capture screenshot automatically, or if you need to distribute to the Google Play, or even to Firebase, for instance, or if you want to handling the certificate and code signing, that's a lot of plugins that you can use in Fastlane and automate them out of the box. So another good thing about Fastlane is that it's written in Ruby. Of course, I said it's open source. So Ruby is a very simple language. So if you haven't used Ruby or not familiar with Ruby, you should not be afraid of. It's very simple scripting language, so you can start writing your own code with Ruby very fast. So as soon as you install Fastlane, so as soon as you set up Fastlane, I'm not going to go through the commands how to do that, because it's pretty simple to go through the documentation and follow the steps. Fairly simple steps. I'm not going to go through that. My point of this introduction to Fastlane is something else. It's about automation, not just how to use Fastlane. You can simply download from Gem. There is a documentation. Go to fastlane.tools and follow the steps. You will get Fastlane. Of course, you can create Fastlane or Fastfile or all the lanes. That is exactly what we are calling Fastlane. So for Android or iOS separately, or the beauty of it is that you can also merge it into one file in Flutter, and you have only one Fastlane, and you can handle both platforms at the same time. When you create your, for instance, Fastlane file for Flutter, this is how it looks. You will have a Fastlane folder, which has a few, depends on how you run the commands and set up your Fastlane, you will have a few files. The most important file, of course, is Fastfile, where you create and set up all of your lanes. So you can also, as I said, you can also automate and push your Android or iOS binary plus all the metadata to the Google Play and App Store. For instance, if you want to write the name of the app or send some, you need to set up some stuff in Google Play for an Apple Store when you want to release an app, right? You can simply handle all of those in your source code in Fastlane. Very nice. So technically, you can run one command and everything will be updated in both stores. You don't need to go through the UI part of the stores and handle everything. So like, for instance, one of the things that you usually do for iOS development, for instance, is to register devices when it comes to using, for instance, ad hoc or something like that for development, right? You need to register devices. You can even do that from Fastlane, automate that. So, but why I like it, the reason is that once you create this script, once you create these files and everything works for you on your machine, it is also possible, and it's definitely working for your teammates or other teammates to run this command, and everything should work for them as well. So you can share code signing identities. You can share different certificates, for instance, between team members. So everyone doesn't need to go through that process and create that. Very nice. So I have a fast file example here. The file is pretty much messy here, but the point here is to show you that you can actually write Ruby. You can use Ruby gem libraries. Like, as I see here, I am using AWS SDK, for instance, to keep my push notification certificate. So if I need it, I can just download it from there. I can definitely encrypt it or decrypt it and do all of those things. Let's go through the basic of the file. So as I said, you can definitely define your platform in Fastfile. So what it's Android or iOS. So if you say, for instance, Fastlane Android and do something, it goes through the Android platform and then run those lanes for you. And let's have a look at the lanes. The lanes are simple functions actually here. So you technically are writing your function. You may call different lanes in one lane. Like, for instance, for my Android release to beta, which is technically related to the release branch, as I spoke in Git Flow. So then I prepare everything, and the prepare is actually a lane or another function which has different lanes or is doing something for me to prepare all the things that I need. Or maybe I now set up my changelog and then I can release to store simply. Some of these actions or functions are made by Fastlane team and also Fastlane community. Like release to a store, for instance, in this sense, it's releasing to Google Store. And everything that you need to release to store, it's already handled and maintained by this action. So you don't need to do anything. You just need to say where and which file if you want to release it. So, but some of them you need to do it yourself, which is pretty easy. And it's just for your requirement. Like, for instance, setting up the changelog. If you want to set up a changelog, you can do that yourself. Let's have a look at another example for iOS. Let's say that I want to actually build and deploy to test flight. That's my lane name. That's my function name in here in this sense. So I can definitely say, for instance, which environment, I prepare everything. After that is done, I set up my changelog. The way that I set up my changelog, you will see it in a few slides. And then I technically upload to test flight is an action from Fastlane community. So you just pass whatever it needs, like a binary location of IPA file. and then it just uploads. You can also say which kind of change like or whatever you want. And once it's done, simply you have a Slack, for instance. In this sense, you can notify your stakeholder on a Slack. For instance, this version has been released, and the change log is, of course, this. And while you can do something else, maybe you need to push after you are building, there will be some thing in your Git status, and then you want to also push that or commit that. You can also do that with Git actions. Or maybe here is the things. Maybe you can also push the tag name. So you just simply create a tag and just push that to your repo. Let's have a look at another example, actually in iOS, to automate code signing. So technically, one of the boring things that you usually do is signing an iOS application. And that could be completely automated with Fastlane, without hassle, with a few commands, and it could be even shared between your teammates. And you can also run this on CDCI software, whatever you are using, no problem. In fact, Fastlane is introducing to us another subset of or subtools called Match and PEM, and together they create all the certificates that you need for different environment and different pipeline, and it also encrypts it, and also you can push those certificates to one repository, or you could push it to Git, or you can use AWS, or you can use AWS S3, or you can use Google Storage, for instance. You can store those files in those places, and once it needs to certificate, it just download it from there, decrypt it, and then here we go. You can simply sign your code. So simply by doing that, you're actually automating one of the boring tasks in iOS, which is code signing. And maybe you need to set up on, like, if I want to set up that in a new machine, I don't need to go through a long process, just a few commands and everything is set up. In my CDCI, I don't need to simply do anything. So it just download all the certificates, sign it, and then push to wherever I want. Another beauty of that is if you need to renew the provisioning profile, you don't need to do anything with devices, for instance. Technically, it will take care of that for you automatically. But as I said, you can store these certificates because you want to share it between your team and maybe other teams to get access to that, or maybe from CDCI. So you need to store it somewhere. There are different options. You have Google Cloud, you have GitHub, you have AWS S3, and I think they're also working on Azure Blobs. So you have different options, depends on your taste and your team and what you are using. I use Git. It works fine. Regarding the security problems, it definitely encrypt your file and certificates, and also you decrypt it. So technically, it's very hard or kind of impossible to hijack those certificates. So it's not a problem. So, but the code signing, I said that's the beauty. So you automate this stuff, right? You simply, that's one action. You just call one action, and then you get all the certificate and all the things that you need to do for the app with one action. You just call match or sync code signing. These are the alias for that, and then that's it. So it starts downloading certificate, adding that to the bundle, sign your API, and everything is ready for you to distribute. And if you are registering, for instance, a new device, it will also go through the Google Apple developer panel. It will update the devices, download the new, or update the certificates, provisioning profiles, and everything for you. You don't need to think about anything before that. Another thing is that when it comes to the bumping the version, there are different ways to handle that, of course, and to automate that. But one of the things that you can do with Fastlane is to get the latest version of test flight, the build number, because you usually maybe download that. Or maybe if you're using Firebase, for instance, you can get the latest version from Firebase, app distribution, or any other system that you are using. And just depends on your team and how you decide to version your application. Just bump that and then push it back to the system, to the Git. And on Android, maybe if you're using Google Play track channels, you can get the latest version from that. So you don't need to think about, oh, which version was it? I don't remember. Oh, it doesn't matter. The latest that you push or to any lane, any lane or channels, you can just get that and then bump it, and then you have a new version. Either a build number, or maybe you can change also the version number as you wish. You can also relate that to your Git tag. Get the latest tag, or bump it, or do whatever you want. So when it comes to the test and other things, so definitely you can create your script or lanes of creating tests or running tests or other commands as you wish. If you want to check Flutter Doctor before you run anything, or if you want to install, or if you want to clean before you do anything for building, run the test, or you want to format, you want to check the formatting, if the formatting is correct. These all external commands can be also called via Fastlane. So you can simply automate that via Fastlane. So once you run on any CDCI, you're not dependent on anything. You actually depend on your script. You can take full control of it. So another thing is that creating changelog, right? Or metadata, as I said. So the metadata as examples I already explained. Like if you want to update app name or app description or screenshots or those kind of things, you definitely can handle it from your, for different language, of course, for your application via Fastlane. Or if you want to have changelog, you can even automate your changelog with another script, create your changelog based on, as I see in this example, I am using another function, another action called read changelog. I'm just referring to the changelog.md file, and I just refer to the latest version number because I already pushed the version number and deployed that. And because I already created my changelog in MD file, I just simply get that changelog and then add it to my all the files that I want to actually deploy to Google Play or App Store. So even the changelog can be automated. That's the point. So, or maybe release note if you want. You can also versionize it on your Git Flow or Git repository. Well, that's not all. There's a lot of other actions in Fastlane that you can use. You can, as I said, you can simply make sure that you can use, for instance, adding tag to Git, or you can bumping the version, or you can push to remote, Git remote, or do all of these stuff. So everything can be automated in that sense, if there is anything with Git in your application. Another thing is that you can even automate capturing a screenshot, for instance, or generating icons. Or for instance, you say, if my lane is release, for instance, or sorry, my branch is release, I want to release it to lane beta. So then I want to actually generate a badge that has beta on it. You can automate that, just a lane and a few function, or maybe a one function actually in that sense. It's just one plugin for Fastlane. Call that, and it just add beta to your app icon. So if users download it, they see this is beta, or whatever else you want. If you want to add version number to that badge, you can generate and automate that. and a lot of other plugins that you can go through Fastlane community and find them. And last but not least, the deployment lanes. So you create your lanes, you set up your functions, everything is ready. Now it's time to call these functions in CDCI, for instance, or in your local machine when you are running Fastlane command. In this sense, we have 3 lanes, for instance. We have internal, that the development is, the environment is development, and the track is internal. So it's just for internal testers. And so once, if you remember the script, when I was talking about Git, I set up the lane and I said, this is my lane. So exactly here, these are representative of those lanes. So simply I set up that and I call that function. Let's have a look at that. How do you like this? So very simple. Just call Fastlane, whatever you are running, is it iOS or Android, and the deployment lane. And here we go. You just run your lane simply as this function. You pass these arguments to that via your CDCI or maybe on your local machine, and it goes through this process and it does everything that you wrote as a function or a script here. So you completely automated everything under your hand, under your control. So, and then if you have like tools to show you how the flow looks like, maybe you have this flow. You can simply go through test or do some updates or build for iOS, Android, and then deploy based on your branch to anywhere that you like. So let's go through the summary, what we have learned. I guess meanwhile, Josh and they introduced some links. If you have any questions, then probably you can ask. So I will definitely answer afterwards. But what we learned today is we went through Git Flow. We talked about branching and release flow. And we also talked about automating jobs and CDCI under our control with Fastlane. So with that said, thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that you are inspired by now, at least part of the talk, or if not all of that, and you get some sense that how you can automate some of your job or task regarding the Flutter, and then just do your development, push your code, everything is handled, and your user, your business or product owner, everyone is happy because they get what they can see. So literally you can deploy every hour if you push, or every day. Depends on how you design your system to be deployed. You get access to the slides with this short link. And you can also follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever you want. You can reach me out if you like later. So I'm at your service. Any question or...
All right, thank you very much, Majid. We will now go ahead and take some time for questions now. So we have a few questions already. And guys, if you have more questions, you can always go to flutter.ph/ask to type in more questions. All right, let's go through them. The first one would be, how would you set up Fastlane for different flavors? I guess for Android and iOS, you can do that, right?
Yeah, you can do that definitely. Especially like let's say for iOS, you have even different schemas. You have different bundle names. That's not a problem. So it just depends on how you run the command for Fastlane. So you define your lane. You say this is, for instance, internal underline. That's the name of lane. Underline, let's say AT or PT or whatever environment name you have that has a different bundle name. So it goes through your start or starter file, which is handling all of those schemas and things for you in Flutter. So technically you can do that, or you can automate that with Fastlane too. So it doesn't make any difference if you have different flavors. The thing is that it just makes a little bit more work to set that up. So that's true.
Cool, excellent. So the next one would be, are there any alternatives to Fastlane for local?
Well, there are alternatives. I didn't find them very interesting. If you like to actually tie into a CI solution, like for instance, if you are using GitLab or Travis or whatever, they also provide an alternative to run your flows on your local machine. But the thing is that they are not. If you are using those tools, you're tied to those tools. If you want to actually upgrade to GitHub Action tomorrow, then you need to write everything again. You may use some of those scripts, but then you need to, go back to all of those flows and write for GitHub Action, for instance. So for until now, I think the most comprehensive and easy to use script or tools for automating all of these jobs for mobile development is Fastlane. I would definitely recommend it.
All right, so Fastlane it is. Cool. So the next one would be, when is it necessary to set up a CI/CD for our apps?
Yeah, very, very good question. Until now, what we learned is actually you're creating your flow, then you can run it everywhere. Local machine or a remote machine. So how you want to run or when you want to run this, then probably that's the time you need a CI or CD solution. For instance, you want to hook from Git repository to CD and say, when I push to this branch, then start building. Once you say start building, then here is where you can say to your CD, okay, when I say start building, just please go to this lane. Depends on the branch you are actually pushing to. If you're going to a feature, just go through the feature lanes and just run test, formatting, and etc. So this is the time that you need a CDCI, perhaps. But most of the things that you want to do most of the things you can do with Fastlane, you can automate them with Fastlane. The thing is that when you want to run it on a different machines, because let's imagine that you have 10 team members in one team or 5 or whatever, you're pushing every minute. So you don't want to, or you want to deploy today. You don't want to do this always yourself on your machine and say, hey, Fastlane, deploy this. You want to kind of automate this. You want to push to release. When you create a release branch and when you push to Git, then somehow the CDCI should pick it up and then start running your command, which you are intended to run on your local machine. That's the time you need a CDCI.
Excellent. Cool. Let's see. The next one would be, with all the CI/CD services that you have shared, what is your favorite?
All right. So no offense to others. So
of course.
that's only my favorite because I like Git Actions, GitHub Actions. It's pretty handy, especially if you also have your repositories on Git. I like GitLabs, so they are very smooth and nice. And I also, if you just don't want these solutions to be integrated with your Git, I also like CodeMagic. For Flutter, it's fairly simple, easy to run. And I also use Travis for sure. So these are my favorite.
All right. Well, does those CI/CD services also work with Fastlane?
Yes, they do. For instance, if you use GitHub Action, you get an action from GitHub for Fastlane. You just simply do not do, you don't need to set up Fastlane on GitHub Action. So with one action, you have that set up, and then you just need to call Fastlane, build your my lane. That's it. That's what you need to do. And simply also for Travis, technically, when you run on Travis, for instance, CodeMagic is very seamless. It's very good. So they have a lot of more stuff for Flutter, especially, so you can go and check it out. But if you don't want to use like a paid version, or maybe like not a paid version, I'm just talking about like a simple solution just to pick up your commit or push or those GitHub hooks and then do something, then simply just all of them does that. But if you go to Travis, for instance, you need to just before running all of your actions or lanes, you just need to install Fastlane from gem, because Ruby is installed on, I think, most of the images on Travis, for instance. So you could simply just install Fastlane from gem. That's it.
Alrighty. The next one would be I find setting up Fastlane in Jenkins. I think you already answered this one.
Yeah, but I can add one more thing to that then.
All right.
Many teams, including the team that I'm working right now, they prefer to have their own local Jenkins, setup for CDCI. That's totally fine, and that's actually one of the reasons that it came to our solutions to write everything as a script in Fastlane. So it doesn't matter if you use a cloud-based CDCI or Jenkins or whatever, you just run Fastlane script and it works.
All right, we have a few questions from Khalid. I guess we can go through them.
Yes.
First one is the Visual Studio App Center, is it free?
Visual Studio App Center was free. Microsoft acquired that, I think a year or 2 years ago. And now they call it Visual Studio App Center. It used to be App Center. So now I think they have a free tier, but it's not free, like completely free. So it's a full, complete solution for app development. So you need to pay, and they have a different tiers.
All right. I think this one is a question about the slides. So why prod push to beta and beta
that's probably a mistake in my writing. So
all right.
Yeah, that's just probably a typo.
No worries. And the last one.
Thank you for paying attention too much. I'm really glad.
There you go. Anyways, the last one would be, I have tried Fastlane, but I face a lot of errors. I think it's not just Khalid. I think there are lots of people having issues with that one. Is there a walkthrough tutorial video or written resource setting up and doing the release that you can recommend?
Yeah, well, the first place that I recommend is just Fastlane documentation. What I really like about errors in Fastlane is that mostly when there is an error, they also show like the reason of the error and some issues, GitHub issues related to that error. So most of the time, like maybe by confidence, 90% of the time when I set up Fastlane and write my script and I got some errors, those GitHub issues that they are referring in the error, they solved my problem most of the time. So I'm not saying that setting up Fastlane can be as easy as like what you think. Probably there will be some tricks. Let me give you one of them. It just came to my mind. When I wrote the script for CI, when you are running Fastlane, for instance, in your Mac machine, you already have everything on your Mac, and then it's fine, right? But when you are going to run this on CDCI, you need to prepare some kind of things for that CDCI before it goes to your lane and start doing that. So these are the tricky things that you need to see. I mean, you run your Fastlane and it works on your Mac, and then you run on, for instance, Travis Mac image, and then it doesn't work. And well, that's nice because, well, the promise is that you just write this and then it works everywhere, right? But when you go to the problem, you see the error, you find out that, all right, there is something that I need to technically set up for keychain, because there is probably no keychain or there is no access on keychain on that image. So I need to set up a temporary keychain to set up to store my password and etc. for Fastlane. And once you realize that, and technically you will get that from the errors and GitHub issues from the Fastlane, you need to face it, right? And then you go through that and you see that, oh, there is actually a lot of GitHub issues. And then they mention that, oh, you just need to run this action, which is just one line of code. And then it works afterwards.
All right. I think that is all the time that we have for. Oops, sorry. That's all the time that we have for questions. Majid, is there anything else that you wanted to add or cover before we wrap up?
Not anything in particular, but thank you again for listening to me. Thank you for inviting me. I hope the talk was inspiring, so you get some sense of things that you can do on your daily work. But if you have any question later, reach me out on my social media or my email. I'm happy to help anytime.
Great. Anyways, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here and watching our webinar. Please watch out for future webinars and schedules by going to our site, flutter.ph, or at the Flutter at Home website. You can also check out our Facebook group page or meetup page for any updates. So anyways, thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Stay safe.
Thanks, Majid.
Bye.
See you.
Thanks, man. Bye.